Hello there, my very good friends. Andy here for WhatCulture Wrestling once again, and a very warm, good afternoon to all of you. This has been a hell of a past 24 hours news-wise. Obviously, Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns, WrestleMania, all of that stuff. Yesterday also we had the news that a WWE sale was imminent with Endeavor, the UFC parent company, taking over. All of that stuff. We've documented all of it on video so far. Something pretty big just happened, and I felt the need to jump on YouTube here and talk about it real quick while it's hot, while it's the discussion point. Vince McMahon has said he's sort of back on WWE creative. Yeah, he's just said that on national television in the United States during an interview on CNBC. So we'll get into that in just a little bit. First of all, let's apply some context before we get to that point and then maybe break down what it could mean and so forth, right? The Endeavor sale, WWE, as of today, sold. It's done pretty much. Now, the transaction won't be closed until later this year, but it's been agreed, and WWE is now effectively owned by Endeavor. That is the UFC's parent company. As reported yesterday, was probably going to happen. As a result of this, Endeavor now own 51% of these shares in what is going to be a new co, which I'll get over shortly, with WWE shareholders having 49% ownership. Basically, what's going to happen here is a new company is going to be formed, and a merger, if you will, consisting of the WWE and the UFC. They're going to kind of become one with that ownership breakdown I've just spoken about there. Vince McMahon will be an executive chairman of that new co. Nick Khan, currently of WWE, will be the president of WWE coming out of all of this, and Endeavor boss Ariel Emanuel will lead this new company, this new co, as its chief executive officer. So he'll be overseeing everything, he'll be the guiding hand, he'll be the big boss. The new company doesn't have a name yet, so we're going to call it NewCo for now. That's the term they're using, but we've got full information on the takeover on our website, written up by Andrew Pollard. You can check that out if you want more context, more details on the WWE takeover. Let's talk about something that's probably a little bit more interesting to you as the wrestling viewer, the wrestling fan, the person who's interested primarily in all things creative. Ariel Emanuel and Emmanuel, Ari, there we go. They were on CNBC. They've just gotten off the television, just as I'm jumping on here to talk about it. And they said some pretty interesting things. It's an interview regarding the takeover, regarding the merger, this new co, all of that stuff. Vince McMahon noted at one point that he was actually ready to walk away from pro wrestling as a whole, but actually Ariel Emanuel said he wasn't going to let that happen here. So that's interesting. It sounds, when it's phrased that way, like Vince has been talked into staying, even though that seems kind of mental for a legendary control freak like this 77-year-old lunatic of a man. Creative. You want to know about creative, right? Well, Ariel Emanuel said that he will have absolutely nothing to do with that, which is interesting, and he called it Vince McMahon's lane. Now, when Vince was asked about WWE creative by the host, he said if he was going to be involved, he said yes and no. He will be focusing, in his words, on the high-level stuff, but he will not be getting in the weeds like he used to when he was WWE chairman and CEO. So there we go. That's effectively confirmation that, at least to a degree, when it comes to the biggest and the most important things in WWE, the high-level stuff, Vince will have a creative hand in the company, which is something that a lot of people were praying wouldn't become a thing when, lest we forget, Vince returned to the company in January to WWE, returning to the board of directors as executive chairman, having effectively held the company ransom by saying in a release that he wouldn't agree to the sale of the company or new media rights deals, as he retained majority control, lest we forget, unless they brought him back in that role. And then what happened after that was he eventually replaced non-compliant board members with his old cronies, George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, who he fired a couple of years ago. But we won't dive into that stuff too much here. We want to talk about creative, right? So Paul Triple H Levesque has been head of creative in WWE since Vince was forced to resign amidst those sexual misconduct allegations, which, by the way, he will be addressing on CNBC at about 10 p.m. EST tonight. Mental. Where was I going? Yep, Triple H has been head of creative. Sorry, I'm all over the place. It's been a rough day. It's been a busy day. Triple H has been head of creative since July. And for the most part, WWE has been increasingly well received during that reign. I think there was an immediate turnaround in fan sentiment. The shows started drawing better reviews. They started gaining more praise. People have been really into a lot of stuff that's been going on in WWE, from the Bloodline to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens to Cody Rhodes to the Judgment Day. There's plenty of examples. I think most fans, myself included, would agree that the shows written by Triple H during this period have been a lot more enjoyable than the shows written by Vince McMahon in his last X number of years at the top of WWE. So, broadly seen as a positive move. And when it was reported yesterday about the takeover stuff, Fightful Select had a report stating that potential buyers, or people within Endeavour, indicated that they had an element of trust in Triple H, whose role was still in question. And his role is still kind of, we don't have confirmation yet of what Triple H is exactly going to be. You know, he might still be the guy handling the majority of the creative, but if Vince is saying that he's going to be involved in the high-level stuff, it's clear that Triple H isn't going to be the final word. To me, at least, that's my interpretation of it. How could he possibly be that if somebody else is involved in the high-level stuff? Somebody who's higher up on him than the hierarchy, of course. So, it was always speculated that when WWE was taken over, or when the negotiations were taking place, that Vince may try and secure a role for himself in the company afterwards. Clearly that has happened. He's going to be the executive chairman of the NewCo, and clearly can't keep his hands away from the cookie jar when it comes to creative. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, it's fine, he's only going to sign off on things, he's not getting involved in the weeds, but I don't really understand why you would put that level of trust in Vince McMahon, famously one of the biggest liars in the history of this whole entire sport. Why would you take those words at face value? I'm certainly not going to do that, and I'm not going to fall into that trap. And look, I'm also not going to sit here and say, oh, WWE is suddenly ruined, right? I'm not going to, Raw's going to suck ass tonight. WrestleMania was a lot of fun. Major booking decision in the main event aside, but the show was good. And a lot of people actually liked that main event booking result as well, so I don't know. I'm not trying to apologize for it or anything like that. I thought it was a silly idea. But it was an idea that many people interpreted as perhaps a sign that Vince played a role, and we can't confirm if that's the case or not, but it would stand to reason. And when you look at kind of the creep of other things on the shows recently that maybe came from the mind of Vince, there's a lot of dodgy comedy. There's Positive Ali, which is not a great use of Mustafa Ali. There are things like the way Johnny Gargano is being written on TV. There's matches like Brock Lesnar versus Omos, which turned out to be a lot of fun, but it doesn't exactly strike you as something that would come from Paul Levesque. It feels a lot more like something from the Vince McMahon playbook, indeed. But that's all we're going to leave it at that for now until we know more. We'll probably talk about it more in the morning once new details emerge. But thank you for your time, as always. Vince McMahon saying yes and no to the question of whether or not he'll be involved in WWE Creative on CNBC, which, as we all know, means yes, at least to a degree. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy H. Murray. You can follow us on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE. Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, guys. Catch you later.